welcome to this spoiler review episode for Secret Invasion, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! Well, we got ourselves our first episode here of Secret Invasion. It is called Resurrection. This one from showrunner, creator, and writer Kyle Bradstreet and director Ali Salem, who is directing all the episodes, because apparently, as Sam Jackson said, the other director met with him and he walked off the project. So a very interesting situation. But now we have one director for all 6 episodes, a coherent thing. And we're starting off. And the way this is a spoiler review. So if you haven't watched it, please turn around, go and watch it, and come back and hang out with us. A lot going on in this episode, gentlemen. A lot happening here. We get Nick Fury coming back to Earth. We find out that Skrulls have been on the planet for quite some time now, and now we've got a quote either a freedom fighter or a terrorist sect of Skrulls, depending on your point of view, led by Kingsley Ben-ADIR's Gravik. Emilia Clarke's Gaia is a part of them. Emilia Clarke is the daughter of Talos, who is played by Ben Mendelsohn in the show here as well. So a lot of moving pieces. Maria Hill is back here as Colby Smulders, and we see what happens to her. And we have a new actress coming into the MCU along with Emilia Clarke in Olivia Colman, and some interesting back and forth here. So a lot of espionage, a lot of back and forth, hints of people that we thought were not Skrulls becoming Skrulls, and then a massive explosion leading to the death of one of the main characters of the MCU for quite some time here. So, Michael, I start with you first. Your overall thoughts on this first episode?
It did not blow me out of the water, but it felt nice. That's my thought. Like, it was, after Phase 4 having some really big wins, some big misses, and a lot of in between, and then Quantumania not quite doing what you wanted it to do. Like we've talked a lot on our main show about the state of Marvel and where it's at, and kind of not feeling like it did it yet. Phase 3 kind of lead up to Infinity War and Endgame, where it was just like Marvel was golden, and it's not that anymore. And so Secret Invasion kicks off, and it didn't like knock my socks off, but it felt like Phase 3.
Ooh.
And that made me feel good. Like, we weren't multiversing all over the place. Right. We weren't in the quantum realm. We weren't dealing with an Illuminati that we were going to see for 3 seconds and then be gone. Like, this was the human characters in the Marvel Universe grappling with what it's like to live in the Marvel Universe. And I think particularly, Nick Fury coming back, Sam Jackson is Sam Jackson. He knows how to do this role. And I think him coming back into the MCU after being gone for so long, and because a lot of the story is dealing with the fact that he still seemingly hasn't fully recovered from the blip and Thanos and everything that went down, it ties back to the part of Marvel that I think we're all very fond of, because it's when we were really liking everything. And so it was working for me. And I think, it was compelling. It had a big explosive finale for a pilot episode. Yeah. And I'm really curious about where it's going to go. And I don't trust anybody. So for a spy show, I think they ticked all the boxes, and we're going to see where it's going to go.
Okay. Shannon McClung, your overall thoughts on this opening episode, Resurrection here from Secret Invasion?
I thought it was a really solid start. I mean, it kind of takes 2 Marvel films that I have varying feelings about and puts them together with Winter Soldier and Captain Marvel. Winter Soldier is still one of my top 5 Marvel films, and Captain Marvel has always been towards the bottom. But the use of the Skrulls, the use of Ben Mendelsohn, it's giving me encouragement. I think emotionally, it may not have hooked us in right away, because Nick Fury is not the most emotionally open guy. But I think that's what the show is going to be. It is going to be this journey. I thought we got some great new actors. Olivia Colman is 100% the standout.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to see where it goes. From a technical aspect, there are some editorial choices that I find a little confusing. And granted, this is all subjective, and I'll get more into those specifics. But thus far, I do hope that we visit the death of Everett Ross and be like, okay, when last time we saw, he had been rescued by the Wakandans.
Yeah.
Everyone in this world on the same page over who is where.
Yeah.
Well,
was that Everett Ross?
But that wasn't Everett Ross. It was a Skrull.
Right.
Well, now, has Everett Ross been a
Skrull the whole time?
Yeah, that is the real question is, yes, has Everett Ross been a Skrull since Black Panther? Is this person just pretending to be Everett Ross right now, and our real Everett Ross is over with the Wakandans?
Right. Yeah.
Or but this, a lot of times with Marvel, I mean, to your point, a lot of times with Marvel, when something like this happens, I'm like, is everybody working on the same page? This, I feel like, is very within world allowed. Yeah. You're allowed to keep me on my toes, and I don't quite know what the deal is with this Everett Ross, and I'm okay with not knowing that, because I think it adds to the point of the show, which is you really can't trust anything. Yeah, you've let me know what the overall conceit of the show is, so I've bought into it, and I'm willing to let myself get messed with a little bit as it goes along, for sure. Yeah, I like this first episode. I thought it was a good, solid first episode for this series, and I thought it laid the groundwork enough for us to understand the moving pieces. Do I think Gaia switched sides too quickly? Yeah, kind of, but I wanted to see or did she?
We don't know. Sure, for sure.
When I tell you I don't trust anybody, everything anybody says in this review, I'm going to respond with, or did they?
Oh, good. That's good to know going ahead of time. Thank you for telling me that. But yeah, there's a lot here. And yeah, having Nick Fury come back, and look, Nick Fury's a dick. All right, let's get that straight ahead. I know you may like Samuel Jackson as a person, but this character of Nick Fury is a dick, and everyone is expendable, whether he wants to tell it to your face or not. Remember, he was willing to fuck over Captain America at certain moments in Winter Soldier because of what he wanted to do. It took Steve calling him out on the carpet before he figured some things out. So this is a guy this is what you're dealing with. And clearly throughout the episode, which I think is really important and interesting to understand, everybody's talking about how slow he is, how he's lost a step, and how the blip affected him. And we even have a moment where Fury is by himself, laying on a bed, going through a bit of PTSD, remembering what it was like to be blipped. And so there's a lot here. If that was Nick Fury, as Mike
is he?
Or did he? Yeah. So there was a lot here that I thought was a nice beginning, a nice table setting for what we're hopefully going to get in the next 5 episodes for this one. So we're going to break it down. For those of you who want to hear our conversation about the AI intro, we're not going to talk about it here on this. You can go to our main episode that is going to be up tomorrow. For those of you who are watching it today, it is up. For those of you who are watching it after today, it is up on the channel, and you can listen. It's our main topic, so you can, and there'll be time codes, so you can go right to it and listen to our thoughts on that. So let's start off here. We begin in Moscow. Prescott reveals to Ross that the Skrulls are here. Ross is going to report it to Fury, and this becomes a battle between them. Ross escapes after shooting Prescott, gets to the top of a roof. He's being chased by somebody, falls off the roof. Maria Hill is chasing him as well, chasing Ross to try to get him because he called in an extract. And then we find out that the person who jumped off is actually a Skrull, Everett Ross, and the person who's chasing him is Talos. And Maria's like a bit like, what is going on here? And we hear from Talos that he is not one of us, he is one of them. So already laying the groundwork down that there's a delineation between the type of Skrulls Talos is and the type of Skrull that's dead there on the ground here. Nick Fury comes down from Saber. We hear about the fact that Soren has passed. That's Talos' wife, who we saw, of course, in Spider-Man Far From Home. We find out the guy has disappeared. That's Soren's daughter. We find out that Gravik is the newest member of the Skrull Council. He's angry, preys on the anger of young displaced Skrulls. This is very similar to what you hear about terrorist leaders recruiting people who are angry, getting them young, putting stuff into their minds to get them to believe stuff. We hear that Prescott was monitoring a Skrulls front, monitoring the Americans against Russia, which is one of the most terrible names ever. Gravik apparently wants to start a war between the USA and Russia to decimate both of them and then maybe slide into the power vacuum and take over the entire planet. Fury goes for a walk, and we find out that Rhodes is talking to the president about Fury leaving Saber, and he's building. We hear that Dermot Mulroney is there as the president. We hear he is building Fury is building Saber as this protective tool against any space interference there on the planet. Rhodes says that both Fury and Hill are AWOL now, and the president says, deal with it. So let's stop there. Guys, interesting intro here. We get the idea that there's two separate Skrull factions. Fury comes down. We hear about Gravik, and then we understand that Rhodes is going to be a part of this show, just like he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So interesting stuff. So and we hear about what might be happening here, the USA versus Russia. So starting off, Michael, what are your thoughts as far as an opening intro here?
Really fun. I mean, like, I think one of my favorite things is just right off the bat, what Prescott is saying in the voiceover as we're kind of outside of Moscow is, living in a world where nobody trusts information anymore.
Yeah.
And I think as an overall idea, that's really important for the show because that's literally the world we live in. Like, I mean, everyone's talking about us going into this next election cycle, which literally
good point.
fills me with anxiety. But going into an election cycle, we've already lived through a few election cycles where social media, fake news, fake websites, all of the things that happened that just spread disinformation. We've seen how bad that is. And now we're throwing AI in on top of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a fucking nightmare. Like, you can't even watch a video of somebody in this next election cycle of them saying something and know that that's really what they said. So
yeah,
kicking off Secret Invasion with this, the only people you can trust are your most loved ones who you've known for years. Oh, by the way, maybe you can't trust them, is just great. Gets you right in there and go, okay, I get what this show is and I get why it relates to what's going on. And as we've talked about in the past with Marvel and DC and a bunch of things, that to me is that's what makes Secret Invasion, and hopefully if it continues to go in this route, that's what makes Secret Invasion as its own entity worth existing. Because in addition to being part of the bigger MCU and telling us an adaptation of a really cool arc from the comics and all the other stuff that's part of being the MCU, this has a point of view about the world that we're living in right now. And if they can stay true to that and keep coming back to that, I think that'll be really good. From a story standpoint, like, love seeing Everett Ross. Love that we're getting all of the ground level spy side of the MCU in this series. I mean, as soon as Everett Ross was like, let me take this to Fury, I was like, that's a Skrull. That's a Skrull. Skrull. So I kind of called it. I do wish in the chase sequence, this is really a very minor quibble, but they kept who was chasing Everett Ross like in shadow. And if you're going to do this big reveal that it's really Talos, like, actually show me somebody else. Like, really lean into, make me believe that Everett Ross's life is in danger and there's this other big bad, and then flip it around on me. But because they kind of kept that person in shadow, when the person stepped out and then turned into Ben Mendelsohn, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. But still, great opening right off the bat, kind of establishing Maria Hill's like, they were one of you, and he's like, no, he's one of them. We get that there's factions. Really cool stuff. Fun nod to Close Encounters of the Third Kind when Nick Fury shows up. Kind of the way it's out of focus and makes him look almost alien-like before it focuses in on him. I don't know if he really has a limp. I don't know if he really has as much PTSD as he does. I don't trust anything. I think he's maybe playing a little bit of the I'm not the Nick Fury you used to know to like keep everybody on edge, but maybe I do think they are going to deal with his PTSD and his sort of feelings of like living through the blip. I mean, we do see him on the bed, to your point, and we see him flashing back to remembering when he blipped. And so like that is definitely going to be a piece of it, but I don't know if it has broken him as much as he is appearing or if it has given him even more resolve to get his hands dirty. So we will see about that.
Okay.
I really like the scene with him and Talos up on the roof where you see this flower that Soren had planted that was sort of like seeing this piece of the Skrullox, of the Skrull planet, sort of adapting to Earth as we are learning that the Skrulls are living on Earth. And I think, to Shannon's point, Captain Marvel, not my favorite movie in the MCU, but I liked what they did with the Skrulls. I liked that they took the villains of the comic books and kind of flipped it around on us. And I really like what they've done with the Skrull story, for a story that we haven't seen much of, which is we left Captain Marvel with them being like, hey, we're going to find you a new homeworld. Like, and that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's 2023. So Talos kind of being like, look, after the blip, you left. Captain Marvel left. Like, we were abandoned. You guys told us you were going to find us a planet 30 years ago,
Yeah.
and we're still here, and we got no planet. So I think that it creates a compelling reason to have Gravik and a faction of Skrulls being like, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I think that completely makes sense to me, and it's a really good villain story. And then he goes to see Olivia Colman, and I was delighted.
Well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but yes.
That's all I'm gonna say. That's what I'm gonna say. I was delighted.
We'll get to it. Shannon, your thoughts on the opening few scenes here before we get to the Olivia Colman scene with Fury, Talos, Maria Hill, the fake Everett Ross, and Don Cheadle there with the president.
I mean, I love the establishing of stakes. Our last few Marvel films have been on the lighter side. Like, they've had their heavier moments, but there has been that kind of trademark Marvel humor. I like thus far. This is very, very straightforward and very serious for the most part. Yeah. The moment that Everett Ross pops up and, we hear him talking to another agent, I'm like, all right, if Everett Ross kills this guy, he's a Skrull. If he dies, the other guy's a Skrull. So, I mean, I am an unabashed lover of Martin Freeman. I love anytime he pops up on screen. I hope this is not the last time he pops up on screen. But also Richard Dormer playing Prescott, who was Beric Dondarrion in Game of Thrones. Like, he's just another one of those English actors who's just magnetic. You just love, or I think he's Irish actually. But you just love to watch him. That moment where they were actually scrapping, I was just kind of like, well, that doesn't make sense that he would be a Skrull. Oh, he's dead. Martin Freeman's a Skrull. Love the chase. But I do agree with Vogel. When you're going to have a reveal, you want to feature the person that is the shell as much as possible. And also, there is, again, the editing that I mentioned. Like, I couldn't tell, like, was Ross hit by a car? Did he trip? Like, it wasn't clear. And it's like, okay, you save yourself some budget not having a stunt guy get hit by a car. But it also makes it a little foggy and a little muddy of like, okay, what just happened? But then as they're running up those steps, as the lights are coming on and they match it up with the music, I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. The moment where, he does fall and we see Maria Hill show up and the whole, Ben Mendelsohn has such a weight to everything he does. And I've not always been a fan of Kobe Smolder's Maria Hill, especially going back and reading some of the new Avengers stuff from, 2008. You see what a great character Maria Hill is. And it's like Kobe Smolder's, the writing may not have ever really gotten her there, but I don't know if she necessarily carries the weight. Thus far in this, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. It feels like she is kind of leveled up her game. The whole thing with Nick Fury, as soon as he was limping, the fact that he's not talking about it specifically, I'm like, is that Nick Fury? Is that going to be the big twist? And that is actually a Skrull up there. So, and then the scene with Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, watching good actors act is really entertaining. And that is what we got. The whole thing with Dermot Mulroney being the president, I'm like, he's a Skrull. He's a Skrull. I know it. Because Harrison Ford's going to be president soon.
Yeah.
Exactly. We know that in Brave New World, it is President Ross.
Yeah.
Like,
get out of my office.
We know that's coming. So, like, you're looking at this and you're like, you are a lame duck president, sir. You are. Rhodey's a Skrull. You're a Skrull. Somebody's a Skrull. But this shit is all scrolled up.
Get out of my Oval Office. All right, let's move on to the next section here real quick. Fury is picked up by Sonya's men. We see this conversation between him and Sonya, and clearly they go back a long way. But Sonya, we hear about the Kazakhstan storage vault theft. We hear that Sonya is still not forgiven Fury about some stuff in the past, and they have their banter and back and forth. And Sonya says, "You're not up for it anymore. You're too old." All of that. And then we cut to 312 kilometers southwest of Moscow. A man walks up to a gate. This man is Beto, and he is a Skrull. EMILIA Clarke drives up, who was playing Gaia, walks up and welcomes him to New Skrullos. So apparently we got New Asgard and New Skrullos on Earth, for God's sakes. But she drives him to their place, tells him that this whole place is all Skrull-oriented, Skrull produce, Skrull products. It's all very much its own thing. Couldn't help but think about immigrant communities that create their own stuff, open their own stores, make their own food in a way, even though they're a part of the United States, they're also in a way little mini cities there that you can go in and be inundated with their approach to things for sure. We see the city with the kids playing soccer, and we hear about Gravik, who provides refuge here, but not everyone has to be a fighter. You just can't leave the compound if you're not a fighter. So you have to stay there. Gaia walks into her room after she leaves Beto, and we see these standalone chambers, which are going to be called fracking pods. We meet Pagon, who is grilling Brogan to get him ready for this human shell, and his human shell is the leader of the Americans against Russia here. We cut to, and we see him take his body and his mind. Then we cut to Fury, Talos, and Maria spying on her exchange. She is talking to Tony Curran, who is an actor I really, really like and admire, and he is playing Derek there. They're having a conversation about what's going on with Fury being too old, but also the fact that they know the Skrulls are going to launch something, and they've got to find this dirty bomb. We hear about Perishkin, and then later we see that we cut to Gravik, who is we cut to Fury, who wants to incapacitate MI6. Cut them off of the past. We get to Gravik, who is in a diner now, who is talking to Pagon about what to do next, and the cause. And Pagon says, "You're the cause." He says, "I'm not the cause. Home is the cause." He tells him that Fury is in town. And how do you know that? Well, we got a man on the inside. So who's the man on the inside here? And then Pagon gives Gaia a mission to pick up 2 bags and bring them to Paprishkin, then bring the bag she gets from Paprishkin to a Moscow safe house. Fury, Talos, and Hill show up in the same place as Gaia. Gaia gets the backpack, and then Fury and Talos beat the shit out of Paprishkin, who is then shot by Fury, even though Talos told him not to do it. And you see the devastation inside of Talos. Doesn't even get up when Fury offers his hand, and Fury walks out of the room because he's a dick and leaves Talos there in the sadness of the fact that he has or that Fury has killed one of the Skrulls there. Maria spots Gaia, chases her on foot. They have a battle between themselves. Gaia gets away, and then Talos confronts her, and they have a back and forth. He informs her that she lost her mother, and then tries to comfort her. She pushes him off and escapes, and she finds a doorway to break down and consume the loss of her mother. So a lot here, gentlemen. Sonya and Fury also finding out about Paprishkin. All of that happens with Paprishkin, and then Gaia finding out that her mother is dead from her father, Talos. So, Shannon, what are your thoughts on these scenes here?
I mean, nothing more entertaining than a chipper, proper British spy in Sonya Fallsworth. I mean, Olivia Colman is just so much fun to watch. Yeah, and she's also one of the people that talks about Fury's like, you're not ready for this.
Yeah.
Like you've been gone. You've been out of the fight. Like this new old Nick Fury. Just a lot of fun. It was interesting how you were talking about how New Asgard, New Skrullos. New Asgard is on these gorgeous cliffs. New Skrullos is in an abandoned nuclear power plant. So there is definitely a difference in the way that the Asgardians are portrayed or viewed and the way the Skrulls are viewed. I actually really like that scene between Beto and Gaia. This was in my opinion, another editorial mistake when he opens up the glove box. She opens up the glove box, and you see that Skrull produce, and she's talking about we drink Skrull Skrull wines, we eat Skrull produce, we wear our Skrull skins. There is a moment where he gives a heartfelt thank you. And the camera is not on him. It's on Emilia Clarke, which drove me crazy. Because it's like, this is someone who is searching for something. And like, maybe this actor's only in the 1 episode. But I'm like, God, why didn't you have that in the 2-shot? Like, I wanted to see the gratitude on this guy's face before he has to go and do something horrible. The whole when Talos and Nick Fury are tracking down, the dirty bomb operator, as he rips open, we forget sometimes that the Skrulls do have more strength than a human, and just like, hey, I've got it, mate. And he just, rips open the chain, and he says, Nick Fury says, not bad for someone who's 136 years old. He's like, I'm not even 40 in human years. I think that was a missed opportunity for a joke for Nick Fury to be like, you need to look in the mirror more often, like, because there ain't no way Ben Mendelsohn's 40. I really liked the fight scene. I thought that was a lot of fun, especially Nick Fury when he feels he is in the power position is very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
The Gaia Maria Hill fight, I wrote down in my notes, a dark hallway fight is a stunt performer's dream because that was it was quick, but you felt the brutality of these strikes. as Talos picks up the chase with Gaia, this was another, for me, editorial mistake when he shoots the gun, but we don't see where the bullet goes. Like, we obviously know he's not going to shoot his daughter, but you need to, it can't just be a gunfire. We have to see where it hits, because that is ultimately what makes her stop.
Yeah.
So you need to see the impact of that bullet. You know, great performance by Emilia Clarke when she finds out that her mother is gone.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like she needed to incapacitate her father further. It's not enough. Like, obviously, she's dealing with the news of the death of her mother, but it's not enough for her to push him and run. Like, why wouldn't he just chase her? We have to see that she is dedicated to the cause enough to incapacitate him enough to escape.
Interesting. All right. Shannon, just to be clear, Shannon does not have children, so he's guessing what he would do as a father in this situation, which is Michael, also no kids. What are your thoughts about these scenes here as we're getting more and more of the information about what Gravik is going to do and getting deeper and deeper into seeing what these different factions who are trying to stop this all from happening are going to do?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, I mean, to Shannon's point, like, Olivia Colman is just a delight, and one of the things that she is so good at doing is, and this is a level of acting. Like, look, it's in the script. It was directed this way. I'm not saying it was just her choice, but you want to play the the British secret agent as a heavy who's going to be like really like go toe to toe with Fury and be just as gruff and mean as he is, and they're sort of butting heads. That's fine, but her being chipper and delightful while she's being like, you're not great. You really let that Thanos thing get to you. You're delightful. You're lovely. I'm going to send my guy with you, but you should get out of here. Like, she's just so good at that. And it's just dripping with irony, and it's fun. And like, I just hope we see more and more and more of her. Also, maybe she's a Skrull.
Yeah.
Everybody's maybe a Skrull.
Yeah.
Everybody's maybe a Skrull. Yeah, like, look, I think Emilia Clarke did a great job as a Gaian. And I think that the whole scene with her, they're leaning into the Skrulls living that immigrant experience and feeling really displaced and trying to hold on to their culture and hold on to who they are. And we drink Skrull wine, we live in our skins, like all the things that Shannon was pointing out. Again, it's just compelling. And I think the more that they lean into that, the better. I think an important distinction that comes out within all these scenes is that the danger that Olivia Colman represents is that she's gonna just wipe, like, okay, there's a Skrull problem, let's wipe out all Skrulls bad. And Nick Fury is a little bit more like, look, there's good Skrulls, there's bad Skrulls. Like, the Skrulls on the whole, when you see these kids, these Skrull children at the nuclear power plant playing, and the distinction between the warriors and the people that are staying there, the people that are staying there are just displaced. Like, they're not all evil. And I think, like, leaning into the gray area of that, and also ultimately the fear that humans would have of an alien race that can do what Skrulls can do, and the desire to be like, none of you belong here. Like, it's a very gray, messy issue. And if they keep it gray and messy and deal with that, I think it's going to be really, really compelling. So I hope they continue down that road. The whole chase scene, like Nick Fury, Shannon's right. Nick Fury thinking he's in control, sitting there in his chair, being really casual, like giving me Pulp Fiction vibes. I was very all about it. Talos being like, don't kill him, and then being upset that Nick Fury killed him. I started to get a little worried.
About
started
what?
to get a little bit worried. Is Gravik the big bad guy, or is it Talos?
It's not Talos. Stop it.
Like, Gravik says they got an inside man, and there are very few people that know that Fury's back yet. Also,
true.
Talos does let Gaian go pretty quickly. Shannon's not wrong about that. And we'll get into some stuff a little bit later that I'm just like,
going to say, yeah.
We'll get into some other stuff, and I'm like, but I am like, again, and this is where you want to be in the first episode of a spy series, is I am sitting there going, I don't believe shit about shit right now. I don't even know if people who died at the end of this episode are dead. I am like, everything is on the table.
Fair enough. Yeah, just to give a quick background, Sonya Falsworth, she might be related to a character in the MCU already, who is a member of the Howling Commandos, James Montgomery Falsworth, who is played by J.J. Field, and he ends up becoming Union Jack in the comics, and the subsequent relatives of his, generational, they take on the mantle of the Union Jack as well. So is she a version of Union Jack that is different? I don't anticipate we'll see Olivia in the outfit, but perhaps in a different
But
way.
man, what a sight it would be.
I agree, because I love Olivia. That would be badass. We saw the fracking pods in Captain Marvel, so just giving a little background there as well. And so just wanted to give you, and of course, the idea of 30 years, how much of the Skrulls have been involved in terms of the explosions and destruction that have gone on. So we shall see. Love the scenes. Really enjoy, as you guys, Olivia Colman sliding in like it's like something you buy and you didn't know you needed it, and then when you have it, you're like, I don't know how I ever lived without it. Olivia Colman being a part of the MCU is like that, and it's incredible. She's so perfect.
Agreed.
I love that. I love the vibe of the danger of all of this, like all of it building step by step. It's simply, you can look at it as freedom fighter, or you look at it as terrorist. It's your opinion of how you want to look at this whole idea, because it's very similar to what we've seen sometimes, stories being told of people who are taken while they're young, kind of indoctrinated into this thought process. So when Talos reacts to the death of that Skrull, I think that's where he's coming from, because he loves his people, and he knows these people have been corrupted by a guy who has taken the fact that nothing has happened for 30 years and they haven't gotten a new home and turned them into these kind of people. And he wants to bring them back to the light, not kill them. And whereas Fury as a human can kill them without abandon, Talos feels that. So I think
counterpoint.
You already had your counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
Your point. All right,
Talos does love his people.
Yes.
So much that he will go, fuck these humans.
No.
They welched on their deal.
Fair. That's, if you want to feel that way, I appreciate that. But certainly Gravik is already feeling that. And I think you can't ignore the Soren loss here. And I know some people, we're going to get to this fridging thing that people are upset about, but the loss of his wife here is a really interesting narrative decision. Having it be this thing that brings him and his daughter possibly together and affects him. How does it affect him? And certainly that interaction between them, where they're putting heads together, Fury and Talos feeling that vibe, sharing the loss of her, I think was really an important thing and nice to see as an element of this. So we will see how that plays out. But let's take a quick break and we'll jump into our last scene here and wrap up our spoiler review here of Secret Invasion right after this. It's good. All right, Fury enters a Russian bar, orders a drink, and a guy tells him that he'll never be the man he was. It was really odd, but then Fury orders him a drink, himself a drink, meets with Maria. They talk about why he abandoned Earth as they play their standard game of chess. Fury says he had a crisis of faith and that he owed it to Talos as to why he came back. She says, I thought we weren't lying to each other in these games. I think you're talking about someone else. And she calls him out on being slow and that he's not ready for this. And she never wanted him to come down. It was Talos who made her call him to come down because he's never been the same after the blip. And as I said, we cut to him remembering lying on a bed, remembering being blipped. We go to Gravik and Pagan, who talk to Gaia, who has brought the bombs. She suggests postponing the strike. Pagan says they don't need to because they have the bait now. Then we cut to a woman who's being picked up by a taxi. Well, the woman is Gaia and the taxi driver is Talos. They have him back and forth just in an alley discussing about her mother dying at the hands of Gravik more. And then Gaia tells Talos about the attack happening tomorrow. There are 3 bombs and Gravik knows they'll be there. We hear that they know about this because there are so many agents out there and they don't know who gave she doesn't know who gave them the information about Fury and Talos and Hill being there at the square. She says that there are 3 bags with 2 decoys and she'll mark each bag with infrared spray. We cut to the square and then we get an action sequence here of Fury and Maria and Talos tracking down the bags and monitoring things. And they find it's basically a 3-card Monty action sequence here with the bags going in multiple directions. And then Fury sees a young girl playing with a ball, follows her, and it becomes the man in the bar who had told him that he was not going to be as good. He'll never be the man he was before, which was so interesting. So clearly Gravik knew they were going to be there. And then boom, becomes eventually Gravik and hits the button, explodes everywhere. Men, women, and children are killed by this explosion. And one more person yet to die. Gravik becomes Nick Fury, summons Maria over, and then shoots Maria in the stomach, essentially killing her. And then and before Fury can kill him, he becomes Gravik again, runs off because there's another explosion. Fury comes up to Maria and she says, "It was you," and she dies in his arm. End of the episode. So, Mikey, thoughts on these final scenes here and the shocking death of Maria Hill, Colby Smulders.
Well, first the scene in the bar, yeah, super weird when the guy was like, "You're not you're not who you are anymore." I'm like, okay, well, clearly this is like a scroll or something, but I didn't realize it was Gravik. But like, nice kind of unsettling moment. Here's what I'll say: Shannon is 100% right that Colby Smulders has never been the Maria Hill of the comics, and the Maria Hill of the comics is a great character. That being said, particularly from like Winter Soldier on, I thought I'm like, I accept that this is who this Maria Hill is in the MCU. I think this scene of them playing chess is the closest that she ever got to being the Maria Hill of the comics. Like,
100%.
I'm like, this is good. And I do think, I mean, I do think she really might be dead, but I almost don't want her to be, just because I'm like, fuck, we finally got her. Like, this is it. Like, I think that the work she did in this episode alone, like from the very beginning all the way through this scene, I was like, she was great. Yeah. And I think it really, I mean, and like I said, I don't ever think she was bad. But I think it took her, like Avengers, she wasn't quite there. Winter Soldier, she dropped in, and I really liked her Maria Hill from that point on. But she was fire in this episode, I thought. I
agree.
And I thought 100%. They had a really, really great back and forth. So yeah, like the whole like cloak and dagger guy and getting in the cab with Talos and then kind of giving him all the information. I was like, okay, here we go. Now they're gonna do this thing, and the whole 3-card Monty, really great sequence. Like, for as much as I had like some quibbles at the opening action sequence and like, you know, not showing Talos right away, I thought the way they did all of this and them having the glasses and being able to see the infrared was really, really cool. So the second that you realize that there are no bombs in there, I was like, oh, so did Guyan like betray them? Yeah. Like was that did she go to her dad and do this whole thing as just like it's a game within a game because Gravik got in front of it and told her to? Maybe. Or did she really think the bombs were in there and somebody else, her dad, kind of switched it all around at the last minute? So I'm really, like, by the end of this thing, I was like, okay. The whole scene where she was kind of telling Talos, like, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, and he kind of reinforced the whole Gravik is the reason your mom is dead. Yeah. And this whole thing, I was like, okay, on the surface, that's all really compelling. And if that's what it is, great. Or did her mom die because she found out what Talos was really up to and was like, how dare you do this to our human friends? They've done so much for us. Wow. And then Talos killed his wife. So like, it could be like, I'm telling you, I am like watching this thing and I'm like, all bets are off. I don't know what the fuck is going on. The Gravik reveal, really cool. Like, just following him, and then every time he goes behind the thing and comes around, like, I thought it was really compelling. And him just standing there, like, at this point, I was like, okay, this will be a fun episode, and they stop them from doing the thing, and then something else happens. No. Gravik did it, man. He blew that thing. And it's like, it's intense. Like, it's very, very... whoa, like people are screaming and running around. I'm like, they really went for this. That's a great ending. And then Nick Fury runs up to Maria Hill and shoots her. And I'm like, wait, did he shoot her because she was a Skrull? No, he's a Skrull. No, it's Gravik. And so like, it was seeing Maria Hill lay there, like, if she dies, I think that is a really great, like, it's a great way for Maria Hill in the MCU to go. Like, it's a powerful death. It's a really interesting, cool dynamic in the whole thing. Or she's not dead. I don't even know, man. It looked like Fury was dead in Winter Soldier, and he sure wasn't. That's so true. We'll see.
All right, Shannon, your thoughts on these final scenes and then that big explosion that took the life of Maria Hill eventually?
Yeah, I'm with Vogel with that scene in the bar. Like the way that Russian guy, it was just kind of like, you know, you'll never be the man who you were, and then him having that conversation where he says, you know, there's a way we won the Cold War. It's by doing this. And yes, Colby Smolder does finally kind of get there, and then they kill her. The actual scene. So that little girl, Nick Fury meets her on his walk at night.
That's right. Right.
So like to see her change into the guy, change into another woman. That was just a great,
who I think is the woman that's making out on the bench.
Oh,
I think it's the girl.
The woman on the bench is younger, and she's a. Oh no, it is. You're right. It is. Yes. Sorry,
that
I was thinking
sense
of Gaia's woman. That's sorry about that. Go ahead. Yeah.
That sense of dread that you get as it is slowly building. Like again, I don't think Vogel is right about this. Talos is the heavy. I really hope Vogel isn't right, because to me, with what we've established with Talos, I'm like, this is on par with Sharon Carter being the power broker. I'm like, that will be such a betrayal, even though the way that Vogel is describing it might make sense.
You could.
It's not on the share. It's not on the Sharon Carter level.
Yeah. But I really hope Sharon Carter shows up and we find out she was a Skrull, because the whole power broker thing is still a bad idea. But yes, I thought the whole scene was really good. Just constructed really well. And yeah, if you have to take someone off the board to, again, establish the stakes of the series, killing Maria Hill and having her think it was Nick Fury for a second, that's a good death.
Well, she never sees him become Gravik. So in her mind, when she dies,
right,
it's Fury who killed her.
Well, I mean, he does say it wasn't me.
Yeah,
but I thought that was a great way to end the series, or to end the first episode.
Shannon, if I see you shoot me with a gun and then you're laying over my body and you say it wasn't me, I'm gonna be like, motherfucker, I just saw you.
I just saw you. I love these final scenes. This was really good, really hammering home the relationship here between Gaia and Talos that I'm sure is going to pay dividends as the series goes along. But even more so, clearly you see that she is possibly mentally moving away from Gravik after having introduced Beto to Gravik. So how is that going to play out? Beto might have a bigger role to play in all of this, or Beto, however you want to say his name, may have a bigger role to play in all this, because he's the innocent she brought in. You know, watching that NXIVM documentary, one of the women who brought in all those women to be part of that cult, she felt the responsibility to try to get them all out of the cult after she brought them in. So I wonder if Gaia will kind of walk that path with Beto once he's been assigned to do something explosive down the road. Could be interesting. So I like that we got a little bit of that here. The 3-card Monty, all of that really worked. Very well shot. And Ali Salem, wonderful job directing that sequence for sure. And then the explosion was brutal and surprising and scary, which I thought was, and having it right behind Gravik, I think was really smart. KINGSLEY Ben-ADIR doing a wonderful job here as Gravik as well. And then, boom, that moment when Maria Hill dies. And I see a lot of people now coming with this fridging thing. And I understand why you would see it that way in a vacuum. Nick Fury don't give a fuck what your sexual identity is or who you are. Nick Fury has a mission to accomplish. He is not going to do this for Maria Hill. So in normal circumstances, yes, fridging, I understand it's a legitimate complaint for someone who is motivated by the death of a female character to do what he's doing. Fury is going to do this whether she lives or dies. That's what I think is the difference in this.
I don't know that is true, because I do think
that's my opinion. Yeah,
it's fair, but like counterpoint, just to be really clear on the fridging thing, I think that yes, potentially Nick Fury will be super upset that the person who he has worked the most closely with in the MCU died and thinks he's the one who did it, and that will motivate him. Like, that is how character works.
Yeah, but
the thing about fridging. Fridging doesn't mean you can never kill a female character and no man can have an opinion about that female character.
Of course.
Fridging specifically from the Green Lantern comic books is you introduced a character with the sole purpose of killing them to motivate the male character.
And that's not this situation.
And even in Deadpool 2, even though his wife had been from the previous movie, the only reason she is in that movie is to die at the very beginning of that movie. Now, Maria Hill dies at the end of this episode, but she is in, like, she's been in the MCU for so long. Like, so it's like, I just think it's like, look there, and like, that doesn't mean that it couldn't still be handled incorrectly or whatever. But the fact that whenever a female character dies now, you have a contingent that's like, they fridged this character, they fridged this character. Fridging is a very specific thing. And when it happens, it's really, really bad and not tasteful. I don't know that this checks all those boxes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it does either. Shannon, what do you think? Is it fridging or not fridging?
Not to me. That was not the impression that I got from it.
And to be fair, we're 3 dudes saying this, so respect to
fair, absolutely fair. We are 3 dudes. Which
female viewers or listeners who want to counter us, please feel free to do so. We certainly wouldn't reject that. To hear a look at another point of view on this. Okay, so let's wrap up our review here. Real quick, final thoughts, 30 seconds. Michael, final thoughts on this opening episode after we talked about all of it now.
like I said, like it's, it didn't blow me out of the water, but it did all the things it needed to do. Like, I think it brings Nick Fury back in a compelling way. It gives a real good why here, why now reason for him to be here in the MCU. And it really does put us on edge because given what Skrulls are, it delivers on that promise of, I don't know if it's the president. I don't know if it's Olivia Colman. I don't know if it's Nick Fury. Like, anybody could be a Skrull. And I think if they play that properly, this is going to be a really, really fun 6 episodes.
Shannon, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was a really solid start. Hopefully the attack, the explosion at the end of this episode is the motivating factor for everything to sort of kick into high gear. And if the scene of Nick Fury tracking Gravik is any indication, it seems like it is going to be. But yeah, I mean, I just like that we're in a Marvel project that isn't going for those laughs, that we are dealing with something that's a little more high stakes.
Yeah, and it feels like we're setting up a bit of a mentor-mentee or father-son relationship between Gravik and Fury, because they keep alluding to the fact that you knew him, you've known him, he's from, Sonya said, it's from your past. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic to explore. There's a reason Fury didn't shoot him. It isn't just because people are around. You could sacrifice an innocent life to stop someone from killing more innocent lives in that way. So there's a reason he hesitated multiple times in that square. And I think that's going to play itself out as we go along for sure. All right, but there you go. That's our spoiler review for episode 1 of Secret Invasion Resurrection. We appreciate you all hanging out with us and watching it or listening to it. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2. And if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it's at The Rocha Says. We think, maybe, could be anybody.
Vogel.
Listen, if you are a human or if you are a Skrull, you can still help us on Geek Buddies, and here's what we need you to do. Smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content, leave your comments below. What did you think of this episode? What do you think things is really going on? Who's a Skrull? Who's not a Skrull? Like, let's get into some conspiracy theories below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave some stars, some comments, helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right, we'll be reviewing this show as we go along, so tune in for our reviews every week of Secret Invasion here over the next 6 weeks. You guys are amazing. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.